And joining us now with analysis is Joel Griffith, research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Joel, welcome back. Always so great to see you. So what do you make of this move by President Biden to tap into our strategic reserves? Do you think it will indeed help to bring down high gas prices? And if so, when do you think this will take effect?
Well, thanks for having me, Tracy. Well, what is laughable about this situation is the amount of oil we're releasing from our reserves is about 3 days worth, 50 million barrels. We go through that in 3 days in the United States. And the market responded by scoffing at this as well. Today, oil prices jumped by almost 3%. The fact is, since day one of this administration, President Biden has been going in an all-out assault on fossil fuels. On day one, he scrapped the Keystone XL pipeline. And then in that first week or two, he tried to ban drilling for oil and natural gas on federal property. Now, over the past 5 or 6 years, especially, we've enjoyed becoming energy independent. We've enjoyed having more affordable fuel sources. And this administration, their stated goal is to make us a carbon neutral country over the next few decades. And what that means for all of us is much higher energy prices longer term.
Yeah, and another thing that we see rising too, Joel, is those home heating costs, as you and I had talked about before when you've been on, with the biggest spike in home heating oil. I want to talk about the impact of that on consumers, especially those Americans that are most vulnerable, those low-income families and the elderly who are on fixed incomes.
Well, for a lot of families that rely on natural gas, seeing natural gas prices double in this short amount of time means that some families will spend several $100s more per month on their heating costs over this winter. And for gasoline, if you're out in California, you're spending up to $7 per gallon to fill up. You know, that adds up to about $150 for some vehicles just to fill up a tank. And to see, sadly, Congress considering implementing a big part of the Green New Deal with this reconciliation package, that promises to really levy additional financial burdens to the tune of $5,000 plus per year on American families as the leftists in Congress try to push us away from the abundant sources of fuel that we already have.
Joel, the president, you probably saw this. He talked this afternoon, talked about this plan to bring down gas prices. He also talked about his port action plan to get things moving, you know, with the supply chain. And part of that plan involves opening up a port in Savannah, Georgia, and getting people working around the clock to alleviate this. What do you think of that plan? And do you think that's going to make a difference, or is it a little too late for the holidays?
You know, this president refuses to acknowledge that the shipping delays and the backlogs that we see, these are a result of government policies. It's not a result of COVID. If you look at what's gone on over the past year and a half with the government paying people not to work, with California criminalizing the operation of many diesel trucks, you've got warehouses that can't find the employees they need because they're still not working. You have a lot of truckers that were forced into early retirement. And then you have a lot of these labor unions that refuse to even operate these ports 24/7, combined with these ridiculous edicts coming down from Dr. Fauci and the CDC that encourage ports and encourage factories and encourage shipyards to operate at just a fraction of their capacity. Government has caused this problem. The solution isn't more spending. The solution is to simply get government to roll back these absurd regulations that have made life difficult, not just for businesses, but difficult for those of us that are simply trying to buy Christmas presents for the holidays coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, and speaking of the holidays, you know, Thanksgiving is just a few days away. And if you've done your grocery shopping for Thanksgiving, prepare yourself because you're definitely going to pay more this year. Believe me, I know. That said, Joel, is there a bright spot at all in the economy for consumers this holiday season?
Well, as time goes on, we're beginning to get rid of a lot of these bottlenecks simply because even in the blue states like California and New York, the restrictions that were imposed are gradually lifted. I think that's in large part due to the fact that people in places like LA and New York City, they're seeing their friends in Miami and Atlanta and Dallas. They're seeing that their lives are back to normal and those economies are booming and people aren't living in fear day to day. And so I think this spirit of freedom is beginning beginning to catch on. So I do think there will be some relief going forward. But I am concerned that Congress has proposed trillions of dollars more of government spending and proposals to get the government involved in even more aspects of our economy. So while we are returning to normal, longer term, I'm concerned that the government is going to be gobbling up an even bigger share of our economy, and that will diminish the standard of living relative to what it could have been for families.
Well, Joel, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much, as always, for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy.